I know how that sounds. Like paranoia or a cheap movie cliché, I fell in love with my childhood friend and she's been using me all this time. But here's the catch. This wasn't a movie. This was my life. And I still haven't quite figured out where it all went wrong. My name is Michael Harper. I'm 28, from Richmond, Virginia. I work as an architect in a private studio drawing houses I'll never be able to afford. I live in a townhouse on South Belmont, the same neighborhood where 1 in 3 people make more money than you but still complain about life. I had no brothers. I had no sisters. But I had Emma. A neighbor. A childhood friend. For most of my childhood, we were like Siamese twins, bikes, pools, home theaters made of sheets and flashlights. If you grew up in the same yard together, you know what I mean. Emma was bright. Lively. The kind of person you always reach for, teachers, neighbors, boys. But of all of them, she stayed closest to me. When we were 10, she rescued my hamster from a puddle. When I turned 14, she was the first to notice that I was starting to change, in body, in personality, and just hugged me when I didn't know how to talk to people. She was the center. My parents loved her like family. We were always Mikey and Emma. Even on school nights, they'd put us next to each other, like, you guys were together all the time. In high school, we had our own relationship, not love or intimacy, but it was something. She dated other people. I did, too. But we always came back to each other. Sometimes she'd look at me like she wanted to say, if you made a move, I'd follow you. And I didn't. Because I was afraid. Or because I thought we'd get there. After college, I stayed in Richmond. So did she. Worked in marketing, then a recruiting agency somewhere. Always changing offices. I knew she hadn't found herself. And every time she'd go to New York or Chicago, she'd come back 6 months later. And I waited. And then she was 27. I was 28. We were sitting in a bar on Carey Street. She was looking at me with the same expression she had at 16. And I knew it was time. Do you ever regret that we never tried? I asked. She pretended to be surprised, but there was only one emotion in her eyes, relief. Mikey. I've been waiting for you to finally say it. That's how our everything began. I won't say it was a movie, it was simple. Cozy. Easy. She moved in with me almost immediately, so I wouldn't have to go back and forth between houses. She and I bought furniture at IKEA, painted the walls, watched old movies on weekends. The sex was good, but the main thing was the feeling of intimacy, which I had never had with anyone. And all would have been fine if it hadn't been for Grandpa. I had a grandfather, Henry Harper. Lived in Albemarle County, in a house on a hill overlooking the woods. Former military engineer, then a farmer, then just a strange old man who wrote diaries and fed squirrels from the porch. When I was a kid, he seemed like a wizard. Like he lived apart from everyone else, knew how to build a generator out of a toaster, and had a knife he always referred to as, in case of bad people. My parents didn't talk to him much. Neither did he. But he loved me. And I loved him. In the middle of our first year with Emma, Grandpa went into the hospital. Stroke. I went there first. She came with me. She behaved as she should, holding my hand, telling me he would get better, bringing him homemade pies that he couldn't even eat. Grandpa died 2 weeks later. And I thought that was the end of it. But it wasn't. A week after the funeral, I got a letter. A real one, in an envelope, in his scribbled handwriting. Inside were just 2 sentences. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. Don't trust anyone who says they love you. Even if you've known them all your life. I figured it was senile paranoia. Grandpa had really gotten suspicious in recent years. But, for some reason the letter wouldn't let me rest. A month later, a second letter arrived. This time from a lawyer's office. A will. Grandfather left me everything, land, house, accounts, even an old garage, which once stood 2 motorcycles during the war. There's also a strange note. Do not disclose publicly. Transfer to be made through a private notary. Not to be discussed with outsiders until the procedure is complete. And that's when I first noticed how Emma changed. After my grandfather died, I was in frustration. He wasn't just a relative, he was the last real linchpin in the family. My parents divorced when I was 20. My father and I barely talk. My mother lives with some guy in Florida and sends me motivational memes instead of talking. And Grandpa, he knew when to just sit silently by my side. When to punch me in the teeth for feeling sorry for myself. He was real. So when I got the will, I felt not joy, but pressure. The big lot, the old house, the garage, the bills, the woods, it all felt foreign to me. But I knew that if he decided it was mine to handle. Emma, on the other hand, was overjoyed. Mikey, can you believe it? This is a fresh start. This is your land. It's your project. I joked, now you're a rich fiancé, you can act cocky. I smiled. But somewhere inside, there was a tingle. I started to notice her coming into my mailbox more often. One day, I stepped out to shower and saw her closing my laptop. It wasn't a big deal, she could have been watching a movie. But her shoulders were tense, her gaze sliding to the side. What are you watching? Nothing, Netflix is down. No big deal. I didn't pay attention. Not yet, then. We went to the property a couple weeks later. Grandpa's house was empty, covered in dust and cobwebs. But it was in order, Grandpa had taken care of it. Emma ran around the rooms like a schoolgirl, filming stories, opening drawers, laughing. Oh, my God, is that a real safe? Yeah. It's old. I'm not sure it works. We should open it. Maybe there's gold bars in there. We both laughed. But later, when I was standing on the veranda, I saw her stay in the room with the safe for a good 10 minutes. She came out with a strained smile. I didn't say anything. But I remembered. Then came the little weirdness. Like she started asking very specific questions. Whose name are the accounts in? You get everything notarized, right? Are you sure Grandpa didn't leave anyone else a share? What if there are hidden heirs somewhere? And it's like it's all in passing. Between breakfast and a soap opera. I was making jokes. She dropped the subject as soon as she sensed I was getting suspicious. One day I woke up at 2 a.m. to find her out of bed. There was a light on in the kitchen. I went in quietly so as not to startle her. And saw her sitting with my laptop. Working fast. Clicking the mouse like she knew what she was looking for. I didn't barge in. Just watched. After a minute, she closed the lid, stood up. Went back into the bedroom. I waited for silence, grabbed my laptop, and opened history. Nothing at first. But then, in the bookmarks section. Albemarle County Property Records. How to transfer deed privately in Virginia. Inheritance loopholes USA. I sat staring at the screen, feeling something inside twisting into a knot. The next morning I asked. Were you looking for something at night? She freezes for a split second. Then, a perfectly smooth answer. Oh, yeah. I wanted to look up that cookie recipe we were discussing. You were the one who told me yesterday that it was in your favorites. Aha. I see. And that's when I realized I wasn't sure who I was anymore. I went to the lawyer without telling her. I asked her to check if there were any third-party inquiries about the probate case. The secretary gave me a strange look. She said yes, there was a call. A woman. Identified herself as the client's wife. Asked for copies of the papers. Lawyer said no. But there was a call. When I said the name Emma, she nodded. Yeah, I think that was her. I didn't know what to do. We'd been living together for almost a year. I trusted her with everything. We laughed, cried, went on vacations. I knew her smell. I knew the way she bit her lip when she was nervous. But now I knew she was lying. Late that night, when she fell asleep, I opened her laptop. The password was the same as always. Our mutual favorite movie. I didn't dig deep. I just looked in the work folders. And I found, an email. Unsent. A draft. If all goes well, he'll sign the transfer in a month. I don't think he suspects. It's nice to have that trust working for you. The Lot Plus house is a great deal for that kind of effort. The letter was addressed to some SM. Unknown address. And that's when I realized. This woman lives with me. Sleeping with me. And all the while, leading a game I didn't even know what was on the board. After that letter in her drafts, I didn't sleep for almost 2 days. I tried to pretend that everything was normal, I joked, drank coffee, stroked her back as she walked by. But inside, it was boiling. It was like a parallel reality. One me, in the kitchen with her, making scrambled eggs and discussing the weather. The other me, in my head, checking boxes, here she lied, and here she looked at her phone when I talked about the lawyer, and here she didn't even ask how I was feeling after Grandpa. I didn't know how deep it went. Who she was socializing with. Why she was doing this. And why the hell now? But most importantly, I realized. I couldn't just sit around anymore. I started by changing my passwords. To email. To online banking. Google Drive. I put 2FA on just in case, even on Netflix. And you know what's interesting? That same evening, she suddenly said. Have you ever noticed that your email is kind of glitchy? I got an email from Amazon, and when I opened it, it was gone. That's weird, I said. Maybe the filter is spamming. Or phishing. She didn't say anything else. But I could see she had. Next step, I replayed the old calls and messages. Turns out she wasn't just calling lawyers. She was calling the IRS. I found the IRS number in the call history. She was looking for information on inheritance taxes, estate cases, questions on behalf of the owner's wife. Next, it got worse. In a chat with a friend, we shared an iMac and she forgot to log out of iMessage. I saw this. Emma, he's almost there. We'll sign soon, I think. The lawyer's okay, doesn't ask too many questions. If everything works out, we'll go to Seattle before the end of the year. OMG. And he doesn't suspect anything at all. Emma, he thinks I bake cookies for love. I froze. SK was apparently the same SM from the letter. Only the name was different. Which meant she had an accomplice. At that moment, I stopped being a dumb romantic. I switched on. As an architect, as an analyst, as a man having his life taken away from him. I put a keylogger on my iMac. Downloaded one of the free parenting tools, connected it to my account, and it started sending me the login of everything she typed. Then I put a hidden camera in the living room, small, wireless, disguised as a Bluetooth speaker. Paranoia. Yes. But when you live under the same roof as someone who probably wants to take your entire foundation out from under you, you either step first or you fall. A couple days later, I started getting data. She was communicating via Telegram. She was having a chat with a person under the nickname Cassidy R. I didn't know who that was. But there was a plan there. He'll sign the power of attorney once we've formalized everything through Albemarle Property Office. Then you'll step in and everything will be clean. Next thing you know, a couple of months and he'll go into the shadows. You can tell him the re-registration is temporary. I read and couldn't believe my eyes. She was going to make me the nominal owner, then through temporary registration, transfer all the property to herself or a third party. After that, I was going to lose the land. The house. Accounts. But the most disgusting thing was that she did it, easily. Without hesitation. With emojis. With phrases like, he still thinks I love him. Stupid. If you saw the way he looked at me when I told him I wanted kids. I shuddered. It's not just deception. This is directing. She wasn't using me. She was directing the script, and I was just a function. And that's when I decided enough was enough. The next day, I put on a little show. Breakfast. Eggs Benedict, coffee, smile. Listen, the lawyer said you can expedite the house if you sign a power of attorney. Like, so it'll go through quickly. Really? Her eyes sparkled a little bit. Yeah. I can stop by today, get the paperwork. Then all I have to do is go to the notary. It's easy. She could barely contain her smile. Sounds great. I'm actually home all day today. At lunchtime, I stopped by, somewhere else. To see an old friend of mine, Jake. He's a cop. Works in the IT department at the local PD. We played basketball together in college, then we parted ways, but we still connected. I told him everything. I showed him the logs. Texts. Screenshots. The camera. He said. It's a felony. You want us to get involved? I shook my head. Not yet. I want to finish it myself. Gather everything. Every last drop. So there's no, she didn't know, later. He nodded. Then do it. But call me if you need anything. I'll be in touch. Sometimes I think how strange the human psyche is. You can eat with someone from the same plate, sleep next to them, share memories, and still know that they are building a trap for you. And you pretend you don't know. 3 days went by like that. I kept playing the part, joking around, taking her out to dinner, putting on music she liked. In return, she was affectionate, gentle, attentive. And all the while, kept pulling up papers. On the 4th day, I brought in the very same paper. A fake power of attorney. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary form of signature transfer. But there was one line that changed everything, the clause about temporary transfer of ownership with the right of further delegation without notice to the main party. My grandfather's lawyer helped me draft it. It was so neatly written that even a professional would have missed the catch at first glance. I put the paper on the table. Here. All you have to do is sign it at the notary's office. Cool, she said. When? Tomorrow. 1400 hours, office on West Main. You know, near where we once found your first real latte. Remember? She smiled. I do. I didn't sleep that night. Sitting in the kitchen, going through the evidence folder on my laptop. Everything was in there. Screenshots of correspondence. Account logs. Video from the cameras. Audio from the hallway where she was discussing with someone on the phone, processing the reissue. And most importantly, a draft letter where she admits that, if he doesn't figure it out, the deal will go smoothly. I sent all of this in 3 copies. To a Dropbox with 2-factor authentication. To the flash drive I left at Jake's. And to an encrypted archive in Google Drive named, Taxes 2020. In case she gets suspicious. Or if I didn't follow through. The next day we arrived at the notary's office. It was an ordinary building, old brickwork, quiet inside, the smell of coffee and paper. Emma sat next to me, in her light-colored coat, with flawless makeup and a slight smile. She looked pleased. The notary, a woman in her 40s, quickly ran through the paper, asked for ID. We signed. She signed. And it was done. Is that it? She asked when we got out. Almost done. We still have to get a copy to the lawyer. It's a formality. We got in the car. She kissed me on the cheek. I'm proud of you, Mikey. I almost laughed. But I didn't. That evening, I went back to the logger. I saw her texting Cassidy R. He signed. Everything is smooth. I'll send the paperwork tomorrow. After that, we can start the transfer. Did you talk to the notary in Arizona? Arizona? That's where her uncle lives. I've heard of him before, rich, private investor. I always thought it was just talk. But now I realize he's probably the name she was gonna put on the lot in the house. The uncle is most likely just a front. The real beneficiary is Cassidy R. Whoever he is. I saved the log. I took a screenshot. Recorded a voicemail to my phone. It's 2:47 p.m. today. It's all signed. Emma's pretty sure she's signing over the deed to herself. In this chat, she's explicitly talking about transferring the property. Now I had the last piece of the puzzle. I could go all the way. The next morning, I got up before her. Made coffee. Put the cup next to her laptop. I left. Not a job. It's a lawyer. I handed over everything, archives, screenshots, videos, correspondence, signature, forgery, motivation. The lawyer looked at it all and said, "I never thought I'd say this, but, Michael, you're a cold genius. We drafted a lawsuit." He sent a formal request to block all property transactions in the case. From that point on, nothing could be transferred without my written consent. And then, we called Emma. I was sitting in a lawyer's office. In front of me, a thin folder of evidence, a flash drive, a glass of water I'd never touched. The lawyer put me on speakerphone. It beeps. 1. 2. She got it. Mikey? Emma, hey. We need to meet. Is something wrong? It's better to discuss it in person. I'm at the lawyer's office. Come on over, okay? Pause. It's short. But in that pause, everything. Then her voice. Okay. I'll be right out. She arrived 40 minutes later. No makeup. In a light-colored coat, just like the first meeting. Restrained. Smile, polite, slight wariness in her eyes. Sat across from me, said hello to the lawyer. "So," she said. "What is it?" The lawyer opened a folder. Pulled out a piece of paper. Turned it over to her. "Ms. Winston, are you aware that in the state of Virginia, property fraud is a felony?" "I beg your pardon." "We have correspondence where you discuss transferring property to a third party without the consent of the primary owner." "That's a misunderstanding." The lawyer silently opened the tablet. Turned on the audio file. Her voice. "He thinks we're just executing a temporary power of attorney. God, he's so cute. Doesn't even read what he's signing." Emma froze. Then she turned to me. "Michael." "I'm listening," I said calmly. "It's not what you think it is. I wasn't gonna go all the way. I just wanted to be safe. Back up." I said it again. "With Cassidy R. With a fake deal through an uncle in Arizona?" She looked straight at me. Eyes glassy. Face a mask. Everything was going too easily. I didn't know how to stop. "You were, perfect. The perfect target." "You mean not love? Not, remember the yard where we grew up? It was love. Once upon a time. But then it got convenient. You know." I nodded. That was the answer I'd been waiting for. No sugarcoating. No excuses. The lawyer continued. "At this time, we are filing a report of attempted fraud, using a fiduciary relationship. All documents signed by you are cancelled. You have no right to. We have no obligation to notify you in advance. Everything was done through a fiduciary, Mr. Harper. It's all legal." Emma stood up slowly. Packed her things. "You loved me," she said without looking at me. "Yes," I answered. "And you knew it. And you went through with it anyway. Because you went first." She walked out of the office without turning around. And in that moment, I didn't feel victory. I felt silence. One that you could breathe in. A week later, the official papers came. Statement accepted, assets frozen, power of attorney documents invalidated. Emma was charged with attempted property fraud. Cassidy R. is her ex, prior convictions. Their correspondence became part of the case. The trial didn't last long. Probation, a fine, a restraining order and a restraining order to come near me. I didn't even have to attend the last hearing in person. The lawyer said. "Everything's under control. She can't do anything else." A month later, I went back to my grandfather's house. The same one overlooking the woods, smelling of spruce resin and wet boards. I'd been putting off this trip for a long time, but I knew I had to go back to put a stop to it. I walked through the rooms. Everything was in its place. It was as if time had not passed here. I went into the old workshop, the one where my grandfather kept tools, odd bits of iron, and, as he said, anything that might come in handy on a bad day. In one of the drawers I found a metal box. And in it was an envelope. My name was written on it. My grandfather's handwriting. I opened it. Inside is an old black and white photograph. It shows a young woman who looks a lot like Emma. Same chin line. Same smile. On the back is an inscription. Caroline Winston. 1987, wanted to do the same thing. Told her no. She left. Now the grandkids are coming back. I looked at the photo and realized. This story started long before me. And maybe my grandfather didn't just leave me a house. Maybe he left me a warning. Now I live alone. But not alone. Just, attentive. When someone says they've loved you since childhood, I smile. But I still have the key to the house. And I hear my grandfather's voice in my head. Trust is a luxury. Don't give it away to those who look you in the eye but keep their fingers behind their back.